Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Administrator Power. It's great to see you again. And I'd like to just quickly talk about Afghanistan. As you know, the security conditions are deteriorating very rapidly, with the Taliban taking probably more than 80% of the country, surrounding the provincial capitals and the embassy in Kabul. What is your, and I know it's subject to security on the ground, but what is USAID's plan to get assistance to what we know is going to be a major humanitarian crisis?
Thank you. Well, our international partners certainly are doing contingency planning for refugee outflows into neighboring countries. The estimates now are 500,000 by the end of the year, likely to flow outward. It is that and that is a large number, but even some of the darker scenarios would produce an even more substantial outflow than that, as you all know. There's internal displacement, which we already see. I think what I would just say is that one can't, you know this better than I do, but it's important not to decouple the security conversation and what our security partnership with the Afghan National Forces looks like from the question of embassy security and our development programming. Our partners right now, notwithstanding the whole of multiple district centers, want to stay. Many of our partners were there before 9/11 and before the U.S. arrived. I mean, they've been in Afghanistan for 50, 60 years, some of them. The other dimension of how we seek to be nimble in this very difficult circumstance is that because of COVID, many of our implementing partners have been working also remotely to reach beneficiaries, sort of not going to offices, not coming to the embassy, et cetera. So I think right now the will is there, even in territories that the Taliban has taken over. You see UN agencies like the World Food Program able to operate for now. But the other piece of this, and you and I had the chance to talk about this on the phone, and I really appreciate your outspoken leadership on this, is being able to offer assurances to our USAID employees, to our implementing partners, that we have their backs. And that just as they seek to stay, that if we do end up in the darkest of all scenarios, that we will stand with them. And that's what all the planning around SIVs and potentially a refugee resettlement program also entails.
And if I could, and thank you. And if I could say, I commend the administration for paying attention to the interpreter issue, announcing today that they will be evacuated to a safe country. Just with a little bit of time I have left, COVAX. I just, this has to be strategic to counter the CCP's vaccine diplomacy efforts. I'm seeing it taking place in many countries where they want exchanges for promises about Taiwan, or they want to have access to military bases, et cetera. Where are we with that program? And also, just if I could add, this Texas Children's Hospital, Baylor College of Medicine have come out with a phase 3 vaccine that one shot doesn't need the refrigeration like the others, and it's not subjected to the Defense Production Act. They've already signed a contract for 300 million doses with India, and I see this as an opportunity to collaborate with them, in addition to Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J, to try to get this vaccine out where it's most needed.
Thank you. There's a lot both in what you just said and then in your opening statement as well about the Chinese purchase that I hope I'll have a chance to get to. But just in brief, it is extremely important that the United States is now in the vaccine shipping business. We did have acute domestic needs. We've made a lot of progress across the country, still much more to be done. But donating that 80 million doses, seeing the gratitude in the spirit of partnership, as you say, not in a predatory way, not in okay, you scratch our back, then here's what we're going to ask you to do tomorrow, but in that spirit that I think needs to undergird all of our programming. That's really important. The 500 million dose purchase that the United States negotiated to bring the prices way down, those 500 million are going to go through COVAX to low-income and lower middle-income countries. The problem right now, and maybe your Texas idea, I'm not Anthony Fauci and CDC and wouldn't pretend to be, but I can tell you right now that the gating issue for every country, never mind for COVAX, is supply. And so the reason that COVAX found itself in this position of negotiating, a purchase. And by the way, it is appalling that China did not donate these vaccines. There are efficacy questions. Again, I'll leave that to the scientists. It does have a WHO license to be used, the Chinese vaccines. But having never contributed financially to COVAX, to not see fit to do what the G7 is doing, which is to donate that vaccines, is just completely outrageous and very typical, again, I think, of the Chinese development approach. But COVAX is in the position it's in because India's had to pull back so much supply that had been intended to go for second shots and for health workers. COVAX has found itself in this third quarter in a really difficult pinch. That's going to change when the Pfizer doses start coming online in August. It's already changing for some countries because of our bilateral dose sharing of surplus vaccines. But the more doses we can bring online, that can be part of the American leadership on this issue, where we single-handedly are not going to vaccinate the world, but we can mobilize the world to get it vaccinated. And I think that's the position we've moved into, but more needs to be done.
Well, thanks, Ambassador. Look forward to working with you, and my time's expired.